Does IT companies suffer from the God complex? Do tech companies in general suffer from the God complex? Now, this video from Ted is really enlightening, and it made me think about this, and maybe it will you too. Essentially, the whole point of the video is it boils down to two different ways we solve complex problems. One is very simple, so simple that you're going to say, well, that's just common sense. But it's called trial and error. The second way we solve complex problems is we utilize gods. And gods being defined as experts in their field. Some examples can be doctors, politicians, mathematicians, engineers, and so on. So here we are in a world of billions, and I mean billions, of products and services all over the world, a world so complex, we really don't understand how it all operates. We really can't figure it out because it's simply overwhelming to us. Give me an example. Take a human child, an infant. We call that, some of us call it a miracle, whatever, but the bottom line is, that is such a complex thing that we're not, even with the technology we have today, we have no way to create that kind of complex life. But nature did. And if you subscribe to evolution, then you'll subscribe to the theory of natural selection, which is Mother Nature's way of trial and error until we evolve to where we're at today and probably will continue to evolve. That's kind of the concept there. Guess what? In technology, we have some extremely complex system, none of which, of course, are as complex as a human child, but if you look at the current state of things, we're also seeing a form of natural selection taking place right now. We see it in business every day. About 10% of all businesses in America. Run a grand total, take today, go a year from now, count up all your businesses today, go a year from now. 10% of those businesses will be gone, replaced with new ones. In a way, it's evolution or natural selection, survival of the fittest. And that is happening out there right now. Here's a problem. Because we know that trial and error works, unfortunately, our schools and educational system is not set up to accept that fact. In other words, when you go to school, you're given questions with right or wrong answers. That's the way it works. Excuse me, I had to wet my whistle. What is not happening in the schools is there's no one standing in the corner saying, you know what, there's problems out there that doesn't have right or wrong answers. And we've got our kids afraid of making mistakes. Even if they're good mistakes. There's no such thing as a good mistake in the educational world. And these people go on to various professions, whether they become doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers, mathematicians, software engineers. We live in that kind of world, even though some of our greatest achievements in solving problems of complex systems simply result from trial and error. Look at the IT world right now. I see a lot of individuals, I won't say a lot, but I see too many who see themselves as gods. They know how to fix a problem because they're an expert in their field, even though many times their efforts to achieve success fails miserably. I have seen totally botched, for example, CRM or an ERP installations or implementations and other large-scale IT projects, all the way down to consumer software, fail miserably because they hired a god, a supposed expert, and said, this is the way it's done. I know best. There is no question in my mind this is the right answer. They do the same thing, when we get into the debate, which is better, Windows, PC, Macs, Linux, you have OS gods out there that lay down the law. This is what's best for you. I know it. Now, why is that? Well, why are they gods? Because gods, number one, hate to admit that they can make a mistake. They believe themselves to be infallible. They don't want to admit to the fact that they can make mistakes. Look, it feels good to be a god, to lay down the law, if you will. It feels great. And we see categories of products that languish on the shelves and then disappear because of the God complex. The designers were quite sure that they were right. This is what we wanted. Come hell or high water, it was going to market. And we're seeing a case of that in the tablet market right now. We saw it with netbooks when engineers told us what we all really needed and wanted were cheap, underpowered miniature laptops. Where's the netbook market now? The market is really very unforgiving, and Wall Street is even worse. Of course, we're also seeing a form of natural selection right now happening in the tablet space. Survival of the fittest. You know how it works? You take a product like the iPad, and you say, that's what's doing best in the marketplace. Let's make 10 different variations of an iPad, and whichever one of those 10 variations does the best, we'll take that one and we'll make 10 more variations of that one until we perfect it. That is trial and error. And in a way, this is sort of what Amazon's doing with the Kindle Fire that we talked about a little bit earlier. My opinion. Today is the iPad, but by making variations of that and taking the best of those and so on, there will be, I guarantee you, there will be an iPad killer someday, folks. And it just might be the iPad itself through evolution, through natural selection, through trial and error. It's really true that the answer to solving complex problems in an increasingly complex world is to step away from the gods and let trial and error, that is to say, allow for and even encourage good mistakes along the way to help solve problems.